I don't really even know how to how to begin this one. This one's crazy. A lot of things going on in the world right now that I did not think I would probably ever see. Like case in point, the recent earthquake in Venezuela, for example. Let's just start there. Okay, out of all the places to start, we're going to start there. We're going to start with the earthquakes in Venezuela. Hundreds dead. Very unfortunate. Probably in the thousands by now. I haven't checked the recent casualty report, but by and large, it's a lot. And it seems like, and people have recently caught on to this. I don't know how they didn't catch it before because I've been saying this for a long time in private, quite frankly, because it sounds like, ultimate cuckoo town. But a lot of people, children in particular, they tend to go missing when natural disasters happen. Okay. What that means is these people obviously are unaccounted for, but the question is, where are they going? It isn't like they're like search and recovery. That's not happening. Okay. They're not recovering anybody. They're just missing. They're gone. Why are they gone? And why is it every time this happens during a natural disaster? Well, I can tell you why it happens during a natural disaster, because that's when society is most chaotic and most vulnerable. It's also the most legitimate time for people to behave this way, for things to be unorganized, for people to go missing. Nobody really tends to look in any general direction, except for this time. There was a mother of four that made national news, national news in Venezuela, talking about how they had taken her children, and the children were picked up by somebody, but the children's last name was changed. And this is actually a story and there's actually many cases, as it turns out, where this is going on, where the children are put into like some kind of protective care, they're found or whatever in some kind of flood or earthquake, what have you, and then they're taken out by somebody else using a different name, almost like the name is like a code. Like if I tell you, like, I'm looking for, Barandez or whatever the case may be, then they know that I'm here to pick up like so and so, and then off they go, and then they're never seen again. Under the Biden administration alone, with the whole border fiasco, there's around 400,000 missing children. I believe it's around 375 to be exact, thousand unaccounted for children. So a lot of people caught on to the idea that the border crisis was a way to smuggle and commit to human trafficking atrocities. Like that was kind of an accepted thing. Everybody knew that was going on. But this one is overlooked by a lot of people. But it is a trail, and it's a repeated pattern. It's happened more than once, where children go missing during natural disasters. So if you really want to get crazy with this, you really want to put on the tinfoil hat. If I did, I would say, okay, so if they use natural disasters as a means to get mass amounts of people to human traffic, particularly children, and if we know this is going on, then is it possible for them to then be able to make that happen, right? If you were going to get crazy with it, that's the question that you would ask. Can they make it happen? Can they instigate an earthquake, a tornado, a hurricane? Can they make it happen? Well, as it turns out, in the 40s, during World War II, British intelligence agencies said that this could hypothetically be possible. And not only could you make a natural disaster happen, but you could actually be very specific. You could actually target a place that you wanted it to happen in. And hypothetically, according to British intelligence during World War II, Google it, look it up, it's hypothetically possible. Hypothetically possible. If you're going to tell me they didn't do that, if you're going to tell me they didn't experiment on that, I think you got another thing coming. Just like, for example, Paulina Luna, with the recent hearings of MK Ultra and all the things that came out, it was widely accepted in a, theorist community that Charles Manson and Jack Ruby were CIA assets. A lot of people speculated that was the case. That is now confirmed, according to these hearings. Not only is that confirmed, but we realize now that we discovered MK Ultra on accident. Somebody in 1977, they submitted a request. What is it, a FIFO request? Something like that. The act where you can retrieve information. Freedom of Information Act. And so they put in a request for the Freedom of Information Act, and they accidentally stumbled upon documents of funding for MK Ultra, and that's originally how this actually came to pass. Originally, the director of the CIA at the time before he retired ordered all records be destroyed. This is not up for debate. This is not a theory. This isn't speculation. This is confirmed in these documents, thanks to people like Paulina Luna and the people that are helping her do this. A lot of things came out during those hearings. And if you now have a confirmed report that the government was involved in things like Operation Midnight Climax, MK Ultra, Project Artichoke, if you have a, because really MK Ultra, people say MK Ultra all the time, but really MK Ultra is like the tip of the iceberg. Okay, MK Ultra is like PG in an R-rated film. It's nothing compared to what they were actually doing. Midnight Climax alone, a confirmed government declassified document. Google Midnight Climax, it's insane. Unknowingly, people were given mass amounts of drugs. As a matter of fact, during a certain time, the CIA actually put LSD in the air in certain cities. They targeted certain cities during this project. Fort Wayne, Indiana was one of them. St. Louis, Missouri was another. I actually live about maybe 30 minutes from Fort Wayne, so that kind of hit home when I realized that. But during this project that nobody knew, and they intentionally gave them no oversight, a blank check, nobody to report to. This was completely off the books. However, for some reason, there was a lot of record keeping going on, especially on paper. And when the CIA at the time, the CIA director retired, he ordered all these records to be destroyed. My whole point in this word salad, why I'm going in so many different directions, is because what I'm saying to you right now is recently those reports were confirmed by the government, from the government. They were confirmed that MK Ultra was true. So it stands to reason that a lot of them probably were too. A lot of these theories that people have probably are also in some ways true. It's not far-fetched. So if you have a government program that's classified, nobody knows about it, right? Where they are experimenting on unknowing participants in hospitals and in the military and in cities nationwide, and this is confirmed. Is it really a far jump? Is it really far out there to say that they take kids during natural disasters? We know about the Epstein files now. We know about everything that was going on there. We know about how a lot of high-level people were involved, and a lot of high-level people today are still covering those asses, right? We know that's true. It's in all the reports. For God's sake, we know this is true. So why is the idea that they could actually create a natural disaster and then use it to do human trafficking and take kids? How is that so far out there? How is that so far-fetched to people? I don't understand. With all the things that are confirmed, things that you know are true, and yet that's too far? Come on, dude. The only thing that's going too far is the overreach of the American government when it comes to things like making us pay taxes on virtually everything that we ever do. And if they could tax breathing, they would. And they do things like, they do shit like this behind closed doors, right? And they put people away for life for things way less. Not saying there shouldn't be prison, not saying any of that, but they put people away for life for way less, okay? But this is the shit that they're doing. So the idea that that is just a step too far, to me, is stupid. Okay, it's fucking stupid. That is not too far for these people. Nothing is too far for somebody that willingly covers the ass of Jeffrey Epstein, covers the ass for decades about the JFK files, covers the ass for decades about MK Ultra, covers the ass for decades about all these black projects, the alien program, whatever the fuck's going on there, right? It's not too far-fetched to say. And they can make weather. We know that they can actually make it rain. We know that they've been doing that for a long time. They've been trying to manipulate weather for a long time. And they've obviously made headway. There's all these videos of these facilities that can literally make rain clouds. So they know kind of at least what they're doing. So what I'm saying is, you've seen videos, right? And if you Google them, you'll find them. A Google search of a rain cloud facility that manufactures rain. And if you watch that from start to finish, realize that it's true. Is it really so far out there to say that they can actually create and make it a precise target? If they can actually implement a natural disaster in a specific place at a specific time and then commit mass amounts of human trafficking atrocities in that same place? Is that crazy to say? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. Okay, it's not too far out there to suggest that these people are even more insane than we already know that they are. I just think it's worth mentioning also that this group of people that we're talking about is the same group of people that produces things like the Yale Secret Society out of Yale University, Skull and Bones, 322. If you Google that, that's a wild ride, right? But these are those people. These are those people. They're obsessed with bloodline and lineages, and each one of those lineages are insanely wealthy. Okay, they don't let you in. If you're a Joe Schmo like I am, a regular peasant, you are not in that. Just like George Carlin said, you are not in that club. Okay, and they don't want you in that club. They want their people, their bloodline, their lineage in that club. And my question to people that have doubts about that, right? I'll say doubts. People that have doubts about that, I would say, if you think this stuff is all just a bunch of hooey, okay, if you think this is all like ridiculous sounding, then why do they take it so seriously? Why do these elite people that literally, not exaggerating, literally go on to become senators and worldwide celebrities and US presidents and world leaders in other regions of the planet, these people literally go on to become the people that essentially lay out the map of how we live our life. They're very important, very prominent people. There's no doubt about that. But these people take things like bloodline and lineages so serious that they actually have a secret society, one of many, inside of Yale University, that a lot of these world leaders come out of, okay? Like George Bush and his father, for example. George Bush Jr. was asked about that on camera, and he didn't deny it. He said it was so secret that they couldn't talk about it. He actually went to Yale University and was actually a part of Skull and Bones. These are those people, right? The people that are making these mock sacrifices and have their own building right across the street from Yale University, that do all these crazy things, make you desecrate graves and get beat blindfolded just to become initiated into this part. These are like prominent people with real wealth that go on to become world leaders. These people that are doing these things are those people. They're the same people, and they've always been one step ahead of the masses. That's kind of the point, right? They've been doing shit like this for a long time. They make it look like something when it's actually something else. It's very simple when you break it down like that. The entire idea is misdirection. Okay? It's misdirection. They don't want you to focus on the real issues. They don't want you to focus on things that you really have an opinion about that are important. They don't want you to think about shit like that. They want you to keep watching the hot girls on Instagram and their reels where they're on a boat and they're in a bikini and they got a drink and everyone's loving life, or like the dance and they're doing a cute little smile. They're dancing in their, fucking bedroom to some song being sung in Spanish. Or they want you to like buy that next product. Everything's ads. It's ass and ads. That's all you get in social media and television and mainstream media. It's ass, ads, and bad news and divisiveness. That's what it is. We've been going off about the Red Scare for years. We never left it. There's people in Congress today that still talk about the threat of communism. It's not a fucking threat. Okay? It is a controlled demolition, and it is a controlled opposition as well. Do you know where the concept of communism originally came from? Western civilization. It's not a European concept per se. It's not a foreign concept per se. It isn't an abstract way of life. It was introduced through the revolution in Russia from the West. Okay, from the West. This is done on purpose because the numbers have been ran, you guys. Okay, the numbers have been ran ever since like the 19-teens. They knew that if Russia and American people united, we would be a global superpower that you could not compete with. That's the entire point. And the fact of the matter is, most Russians and American people have a lot in common. They have an incredible amount of shit in common. They don't want you to think that, though. People hear that and they're like, "Oh no, actually, yeah, motherfucker, you do. Okay, you have a lot in common with these people. The problem is you've been coerced for over a century now about the threat of these people because they live life a different way than you are, which is not a way that they invented. It was a way that was introduced to them, and they didn't let them forget it. They didn't let it stop. but it ultimately died in the region. It's not like that anymore necessarily, and it went through a long, hard haul to get there. But even if you notice, like especially like the 70s and the 80s, the people of Russia didn't even want that system to begin with. That's what they do. And we go back to that misdirection thing. They disguise it as something, but it's actually something else. Communism was introduced in Russia as a party for the people. It was introduced to people that were on the out, that were not getting fair wages, that were starving to death. Okay. They were overworked, underpaid, and extremely underprivileged. So when people of high marking come up and they say, hey, like we should like unite and we should make a new political party, that way the people have control over society. And then people went along for it. Back in the day, it wasn't unheard of to be a communist. That's what the Red Scare was about in the first place after World War II. That's why we went hunting down communism in Congress. And there's that guy that Roy Cohn helped. Well, I can't remember his name. But the guy that Roy Cohn, the guy that trained Donald Trump on hardball politics, he's an attorney. And he helped try to track down former communists in Congress during the 50s and 60s after World War II. They never found a single one, you guys. They never found a single one. But they wanted the masses of the United States to be terrified of the concept of communism, which wasn't even an idea that originated in Russia or China to begin with. It was intended and it was precisely laid out to divide us so that the people of these two countries, the actual body of these two countries, would never see eye to eye and never unite and hate and be terrified of each other. Because if we ever didn't do that and if we ever became friends, that would be a really big fucking problem for them. So they couldn't have that. So then they just implemented all of this shit, like communism, for example. And then they made Americans, they pumped them full of fear and anger towards communism. It was all by design. It's by the same people, the same bloodlines, the same lineages. It's all laid out there, okay? But the reality is that that's where the power lies, and they know that, and that's why they do shit like this all the time. I said I wanted to cover a few things here earlier, and those really are two of the most important ones, I think, is really keeping an eye on what's going on with these earthquakes and the human trafficking, where the hell these kids are going. Because I'm so sick of hearing of missing kids. I'm so sick of hearing about human trafficking. I'm so sick of the atrocities. And I'm so sick of everybody just standing around and watching it happen, not doing anything. I'm not calling for violence of any kind. I'm not calling for any kind of offensive on anybody. But I am calling for people, for fathers, for parents to get loud about this shit, to track these crimes against humanity down, to not let it go. I think that things are done on purpose in such a way that they tell you things eventually, because it's one of the rules of alchemy, which if you Google alchemy, know anything about alchemy, the Illuminati and so forth, they take that kind of stuff very seriously. And one of the laws of alchemy is that you can't affect somebody's free will, right? And if you can't affect somebody's free will, that means you have to tell them what your intentions are and what you're going to do. But it doesn't say how you have to tell them. It never says specifically how you have to tell. It just says that you have to tell them. That way you're not interfering with their free will. And because it doesn't say how you have to tell people what you're doing, that means you can put it in little symbols in movie logos. You can put it on cans of products that people drink and go past every day. You can put it in movies and little hidden messages. As long as it's out there, they're not violating that law, which they take very seriously. So off we go with the subliminal messaging, because subliminal messaging still technically follows that law. But I think that's what's going on. And I think that's what's going on when it comes to things like, when it came to things like COVID and when it came to things like the Epstein files. I don't think those things were leaked out of the goodness of anybody's own heart. I think it was leaked on purpose, but they're not perfect. These people it's not a perfect system. They are flawed. And that's two mistakes I think they made. During COVID, it was too much, too quick. Everybody caught on to what the hell was going on. Everybody's like, wait a minute. Like, I got to stay out of the sun. Like, now all of a sudden vitamin D is bad for me. Like now I have to get a vaccine for a sickness that I don't have, or that I have natural antibodies to because I already had it. This seems pretty overreaching, and it was just too in your face and people caught on too much. That's why the subliminal messaging is so effective, because you can put it in somebody's face for years and they'll never see it. You know what I mean? Until maybe one day somebody does. But what are the chances? But COVID was too much too quick, right? It might have even been a simulation. It might have even been like a war game of some kind. But I don't think that was organic. Okay. And I say that for a couple of reasons. One of them I just listed. The second thing is the Epstein files. I think those were released on purpose, trying to, again, follow these laws of alchemy. This is just one possibility. I'm not saying this is the case. I'm just saying this is a possibility. Following those laws of alchemy, which they take seriously and have done so in the past, they're informing the masses. It was leaked on purpose, right? And maybe it was a means to an end. Maybe they had to get rid of the guy. I don't know. Maybe they had to put him in witness protection of their own version of that. I don't know. All I'm saying is that I think they expected the people, when it came to COVID, I think they expected the people to just fall in line and be afraid right up until there was an overreach of power and it was too late. And that didn't happen. And I think that they expected people to just kind of hang up and give up the ghost on the Epstein files, kind of move on and kind of forget, because we're really good at doing that. We're still doing that right now on some level. I think they expected people to do that, and people didn't do that. People are still outraged about it, and they should be, as you should be. But I think that essentially, in concept, might have something to do with what we're seeing. Kind of like with the natural disaster situation, back to that. If you have a natural disaster, oh, it's terrible, thousands dead, it destroyed the buildings, it's going to take us years to rebuild. Oh no, nobody around in all that chaos is going, where the fuck are our kids? Where are all the kids at? Nobody's doing that. But one mother did this last time. And I think that's why this even got out in the first place. It's because one mother stepped down. She's like, my kids are missing. I don't know where they are. And apparently, according to people that they were supposed to be at the location, those people said somebody else came and got them, used the last name to get them. The last name was changed for no reason. So that's pretty messed up. But they do these things, they do these misdirection things because they don't want you to focus on the things that are important. That's why they fool you. They entertain you with bread and circus. Okay, that's all this is. It's just bread and circus. It's the hot Instagram models that blow up your feed. Adult brain rot is a very real thing. People think it's just exclusive to kids. It's not. You have brain rot too. It's constant ads for things you don't need. It's constant mindless videos of entertainment that actually isn't entertaining at all. It's just filler, or it's like sexually attractive, or it's neurologically stimulating. They have so many options here, but those are the two of the main popular ones. And they use these things, they trot them out, and then, then we kind of forget about everything else. Maybe even a lot of you know this stuff already, but nobody really does anything about it because it's not important enough, because we're kind of glazed over with entertainment. And if you look at it, the entertainment kind of sucks. It kind of sucks. There's no real entertainment to it. It's just getting you away from what's important. And it's also getting you away from finding anything in common with anybody. They pander to human nature, and one of the strongest attributes of human nature is tribalism. And boy, do they fucking bang that drum. They bang that drum so much because they don't want you, forget about Russia, but they don't want you to be friends with Russians. They don't. I'm not saying Russia's all good and saints. I'm not saying that. They definitely have their flaws. So do we. But they don't want you to even consider being allies with them. Even though if in a different world where that would happen, that would actually be very beneficial. Side note. But they don't even want you to have anything in common with your neighbor or the people that live in your community or the people that live in the next town over. They don't want you to think about that shit at all. They do the same kind of thing in Congress where they bat this ball around of like transgenderism and voter ID, which is important. I'm not saying it's not. But there's other really important issues that never get addressed. We vote in president after president, senator, representative after senator and representative. We could go through an entirely new Rolodex of people. It wouldn't change a thing. And it hasn't. And we've seen this for decades. That's why I say that with such confidence, because it hasn't ever changed. It's never going to. That's by design. They want you to feel like they are doing something, so they constantly trot out these side issues, misdirection, but they never actually address the real shit. And whenever anybody does address the real shit, well, we know what happens there. So, but unfortunately, I'm probably going to leave it there for tonight. I would love to get into more of this stuff later. To anybody listening or anybody watching, I definitely appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And if you have something to add, or if you have something to say, love it, hate it, whatever the case, I would love to hear about it. I would love to hear from you guys. I would love to have some of you guys talk with me sometimes. I don't want to be in a vacuum. So I really appreciate the time, and I'm going to do this a lot more often. This is actually just a hobby of mine. I love doing this, but I'll make it longer and more frequent, and I'll go from there. Any feedback is appreciated, even if you hated it. Appreciate you. God bless.